Paul, we're live.
All right. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be joining us from. Thank you very much for joining this session, session number 23, which is titled Facilitating Safe Trade Along Supply Chains, Digitizing SPS Certificates and Other Import-Export Documentation. My name is Paul Fekete. I'm Senior International Trade Advisor with the U.S. Agency for International Development Center for Economics and Market Development, part of the newly created Bureau for Development, Democracy and Innovation, or DDI. I'll be serving as the moderator for our event today. Our event today is jointly sponsored by USAID and the Office of the United States Trade Representative. USAID and USTR have worked closely over many years at the intersection of trade and development and support, along with many other U.S. government agencies, aid for trade efforts, or trade capacity building, as we refer to it in the United States. USAID is the world's premier development agency and leads the U.S. government's trade capacity building efforts. TCB, or Aid for Trade, plays a critical part in the United States' strategy for enabling developing countries to implement the market opening reforms necessary for trade agreement compliance and to foster economic growth from increased trade and investment. The United States is the largest single country provider of trade-related assistance, with our obligations having totaled approximately $702 million in fiscal year 2019, and we have investments in over 931 activities across 124 countries, geographic regions, and trade areas. We have a very full program today. We have a full program today comprised of two panels, but as you'll see, the two sessions are very closely linked. Session number 23 and 25. So we hope that after our first panel is completed, you'll be able to stay with us for the second. I want to give only the briefest of introductions to our panelists so that we can preserve as much time as possible for the presentations and so that we leave sufficient time for Q&As. Full biographies of our presenters is available on the website, and I've posted in the chat box the URL link for the speaker bios so that all of you can turn there as they take their turns with their presentation. The workshop today will examine how trade rules, such as those outlined in the Trade Facilitation Agreement, the TFA, and policies promoting free flows of data enable countries to build resilience in their supply chains and ultimately support the development of their domestic economies and trade regimes in response to COVID-19. Under the first topic, adapting trade formalities to COVID-19, we'll give voice to regulators from the United States, Chile, and Argentina, who will engage in a dialogue on the use of new technologies, particularly Fido, in the context of strengthened customs clearance processes. The regulators' presentations will then be followed by two value chain case studies, one horticultural trade with Chile, and then second bulk grain trade with Kenya. Our second panel, as I said, will immediately follow on e-commerce, and we are excited to have Cargill showcasing some compelling stories on the use of e-commerce and digital technologies in cocoa value chains in Côte d'Ivoire. And then last but not least, we will also feature speakers from Etsy and two small and medium enterprise exporters from Guatemala and El Salvador that have increased their e-commerce exports thanks to a project of the International Trade Center. We want to encourage as much interaction from our audience as possible, and we'll leave time at the end of each panel presentation for Q&As. Please post your questions online in the question section, and we'll try to field as many as possible. I'm delighted that we have, for our opening remarks, Don Shackelford, who is the Assistant United States Trade Representative for the WTO and Multilateral Affairs. Don, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much for that introduction, Paul. It's great to be here today and welcome everyone to this U.S.-sponsored event on trade and development challenges arising from COVID-19, responses, recovery, and resilience. I want to talk to you today about two themes of this program that are important to the United States trade and development agenda at the WTO. These themes are adapting trade formalities to COVID-19 and paperless trade, development, and the enabling environment for e-commerce. During today's unprecedented global health crisis, traders, particularly MSMEs, are struggling to operate amid disrupted supply chains, hampered cross-border mobility, and sharp increases in trade costs due to the pandemic. Some regulators and traders quickly confronted these challenges by increasing the use of electronic certification and other documentation. They recognized that customs and border operations that are automated and use data and digital images rather than paper documents and document couriers are not only more efficient, but also limit in-person contact, keeping everyone safe. We should explore how these trade facilitating innovations can continue as the pandemic subsides. Likewise, businesses and consumers quickly pivoted to e-commerce for purchasing goods and services during the lockdown, and many of these changes may endure beyond the pandemic. Global policymakers should take note of these changes and ensure that the appropriate policies are in place to enable continued growth. It is our hope that the event today will present practical examples of how implementing WTO rules on trade facilitation and working to enable e-commerce can help developing economies foster resiliency and economic growth. From the United States perspective, these recent experiences responding to the pandemic have reaffirmed our support for the rapid implementation of the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement. While members have made great progress in implementation of the Trade Facilitation Agreement, notifications from many countries suggest that they will not complete implementation until 2035, which is too far off to reap the many benefits of the agreement. Now, more than ever, is the time to harness the benefits of the Trade Facilitation Agreement through its accelerated implementation. To this end, the United States is joined by 13 other WTO members as co-sponsors calling for the accelerated implementation of this agreement. Regarding digital trade, during the pandemic, we have realized how much we all rely upon data flows. For example, digital trade and e-commerce enabled us to remotely work and study, provide for the safe delivery of essential goods and services, facilitated the open exchange of data across borders to conduct pharmaceutical research, and enabled the enjoyment of creative content in our homes. The pandemic reminds all of us that digital trade is an essential foundation of the modern global economy. Recognizing this, even before the pandemic, the United States embarked upon the important work of achieving a high standard agreement on digital trade that would meaningfully reduce digital trade barriers around the world. In December 2017, the United States joined 70 other WTO members to announce the initiation of exploratory work towards a future agreement on the trade-related aspects of electronic commerce and digital trade. A little over 3 years later, we're now up to 86 members are participating, and we are deeply engaged in text discussions in a wide range of subject matters of critical importance to e-commerce and digital trade. The United States' focus remains on achieving high standard outcomes, including obligations to ensure cross-border data flows, prohibit data localization, bar the forced disclosure of source code, and prohibit customs duties on electronic commerce. It is clear these issues are critically important to businesses across all sectors and throughout the globe. This was re-emphasized by a recent issuance of a multi-industry statement representing over 75 associations around the world that stressed the importance of an agreement that facilitates the seamless and secure movement of information across all borders. We look forward to hosting you today, and I encourage you to participate by posting questions during the Q&A at the end of each session. Thank you again for joining us today. Paul, I'll turn it back over to you.
Dawn, thank you very much. Thank you very much for setting the scene for our panel presentations. With that, let me turn to our first speaker. We have Christian Dellis, who is the Deputy Director for Phytosanitary Issues Management at Aphis, which is the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service at the United States Department of Agriculture. Christian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you everyone for allowing us to be here today and present on this important initiative. I'm going to talk briefly about the overall ePhyto solution. And just briefly to touch on why we want to do ePhyto, there's a number of reasons, but one is it reduces non-compliance. Historically, there are more paperwork rejections than actual pest fines, which are the most important thing in the phytosanitary world. It will also help eliminate many inefficient, labor-intensive processes, reduces the reissuance of paper phytosanitary certificates. And for example, on the U.S. side, on our phytos to Morocco, we actually replaced close to 10%. And each time we would do a replacement in the past, it would add an additional day to the commercial transaction. And now when we replace the certificate, they get the new certificate immediately. So it prevents loss of commodities waiting for clearance, saves time and money, reduces industry claims for late deliveries or bad quality. And ePhyto, from the government phytosanitary authority side, protects legitimate trade by preventing fraudulent certificates and the introduction of pests. The IPBC ePhyto solution has three main parts. There is a hub, which for lack of a better term is like a post office where each country gets its own box and can automatically send and receive with any other countries. The generic ePhyto national system, otherwise known as the GENS, which is a centralized web-based system which allows countries that don't have their own system to produce, send, and receive through the hub with any other participating countries, and harmonized messaging, which is a lot of ongoing work to further codify the elements of the ePhytos that we're exchanging so that we can achieve further automation in the future. This is a graphical representation. Countries that have their own system are connected, and countries that do not have their own system can gain access to a version specific for their country that allows them to participate. This is an ePhyto. It's always a eye-opener when people see it. But the real challenge that we had for a number of years with getting a lot of countries to participate was that we had international standards, but they were being applied in different ways. And the IPBC ePhyto project helped us to standardize what the appropriate elements are for each one of these fields, as opposed to working on it bilaterally, where you would then have to different interpretations of each field with each country. Here's that same ePhyto as a paper representation. On the left is when Argentina actually issues it from their system. And on the right is that same information that is printed off on the US side. And we do this with every Fido that we receive. So the standardized format leads to faster and easier document review for our customs officials. So country participation currently with the hub, we're actively exchanging ePhytos with 46 countries. I think this is a very important point because the hub went live in late 2018, and then the first 18 months, roughly 12 countries really began exchanging, which was a huge improvement, but it was still not as far along as we had hoped to be. But then this past year, when the COVID pandemic hit, there were so many disruptions to shipments, courier services, and overall ability to move the paperwork along with the commodities that many more countries began realizing the overall benefits to electronic certification and ramped up their efforts to join. So we went from 12 to 46 countries in less than a year. I would like to point out a few caveats. Australia and the European Union are currently only able to receive certificates. The European Union is likely to be able to send in the next 2 months. And with the exception of the European Union, the Netherlands is the only country that is able to send and receive currently. And Kenya is only able to send at the moment. They hope to be able to receive by the middle of this year. There are a number of other countries that are currently testing their system connection to the hub, and many of us participating today provide a lot of feedback and assistance on getting those countries up and running. My best guess is that Colombia, Hong Kong, and Uzbekistan may be the next 3 countries that actually go live with exchanges. And there are a lot of countries that are testing the generic system. The Bahamas and Dominican Republic are likely the next 2 to get started, but there are approximately 50 other countries throughout Africa, the Caribbean, and Pacific Island mainly that are also interested and are in various stages of getting started and joining. I would like to point out that there is a website now, the www.ephytoexchange.org, which has a video that demonstrates the benefits and some of the overall concept of the solution better. There's also a number of documents and fact sheets and such that you can obtain through that website. What's next with ePhyto? We're constantly working to improve the system. We're working on response messages, so as we receive an ePhyto, if there is a problem, we would be able to send a message back to the originating country and hopefully get issues addressed in a much more timely manner. We're also looking at interfacing the IPPC hub with other government systems, be it single window systems, other custom systems, ASICUDA, etc. Working to also incorporate industry systems where appropriate. Further collaboration with non-phytosanitary agencies such as OIE and Codex, and there's actually been some trials where we've actually exchanged some veterinary certificates through the test environment as well. Routine maintenance and enhancements of the system based on feedback from participating countries around the world. And then further versioning, because we know over time the message is going to have to be tweaked and enhanced based on issues that are identified through the exchange of the documents. And with that, I would like to thank you for your time, and I look forward to questions later.
Christian, thank you very much for your presentation. Thanks for the overview from the U.S. perspective. I also note in the chat box that Melvin Spray from the STDF has posted a link for some more information on the SPS eCert system. So thank you very much, Melvin. Our next speaker, I'd like to turn to Rodrigo Robles. Rodrigo manages the electronic certification unit at the Agriculture and Livestock Services Department at the Ministry of Agriculture in Santiago, Chile. Rodrigo, the floor is yours.
Sorry, Paul. I think Argentina will be first in our presentation.
All right, I apologize. Then let's turn to Walter Alessandrini. Walter has been a member of the ePhyto steering group, the IPPC, representing Latin America and the Caribbean region since 2013. Walter, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thanks, Chris. Great presentation. Me and Rodrigo, we try to explain the experience between Chile and Argentina regarding ePhyto, that's electronic phytosanitary certification. And I start presenting. I start my presentation with about SENASA Argentina, how we reach the electronic phytosanitary certification. So, first of all, I want to tell you that SENASA has decided exchanging electronic phytosanitary certificates only through the IPPC ePhyto system, maintaining only one connection. This is our own national system connected to the IPPC hub and following the Appendix 1 of the ISPM 12. All the efforts are concentrated in using and improve this platform, and we are keen to use the hub to exchange also other kind of certificates like OIE or Codex, all the kind of certificates we could exchange through the hub. We are keen to do. So some of our history about how we reached this point. Well, in 2008, together with the development of ePhyto at the international level, we went from manually issued certificate to electronic certificate. In 2008, we started with the development of a national system to issue phytosanitary certificates in paper. The goal of this certificate was just to stop issuing phytosanitary certificates manually and start receiving certificate requests through a web platform from the exporter, right? It was a big improvement for us, but it had nothing to do with ePhyto itself. We're maintaining issuing certificates in paper. So this system named Fido went live on 2012. But during its development, a number of international and regional ePhyto workshops took place. In Ottawa in 2009, for instance, it was a big one, an international one. In Montevideo in 2010, and in Santiago de Chile in 2012. So since 2009, we started thinking in modifying the systems to support electronic phytosanitary certification. And in addition, we decided to use the system to issue other kinds of certificates for plant products, like health certificates, GMO. So we realized that a new architecture for the system was needed. And we started new development in 2014. In 2016, SERPOV, that was the name of the system of the current one, went live. This is a system that was capable of create XMLs and to easily be connected to the hub. So in 2017, we were connected to the hub. This is when the hub was launched for piloting. At the beginning of 2018, we started exchanging phytos with other countries connected to the hub. The first one was the US, and then Chile, New Zealand, and the Netherlands was connected, and we started exchanging phytos. So in this time, certificates in paper were issued together with the ePhyto, right? The ePhyto was accepted only in special occasions when a problem was in place. For instance, I can remember some stories about a problem with the paper certificate in the US, and we talked with Christian, and they accept the electronic certificate to release the goods, right? So we start seeing benefits of the electronic certification, even when we were not paperless yet, right? But we start seeing some benefits because we start using the ePhyto to release some goods when the problem was there. But in 2020, we starting paperless certification with a lot of countries. We are now exchanging paperless with the US, with Chile, that is our presentation now, with Costa Rica and Sri Lanka. And we are in the process of remove the paper with other countries like European Union, Colombia, Mexico, Paraguay. European Union specifically is receiving the e-Phyto without the need of paper right now, but it's because the pandemic. So we are doing some efforts to continue with this scenario after the pandemic. This is more related to digital signatures because digital signatures is a requirement for EU to receive electronic certificates. So in the near future, we are expecting to be connected with all the MPPOs in the world. And also, not only MPPOs, also with third parties like industry, bank, or ship company system. Well, some statistics about e-Phyto in Argentina. In 2020, we issue like 113,000 phytosanitary certificates in total, and 38,000 were electronic. So they were about 34% of the total, the electronic certificates in the exports. In the imports, the numbers are a bit worse, but we issue almost 31,000 phytosanitary certificates. We received close to 31,000 certificates. There were almost 4,000 electronic, so it represents 13% of our certificates that we received. In 2021, the numbers was similar. Of course, so far this year, the number is similar. And we have 38% of electronic certificates in exports and 12% of electronic certificates in our imports. But well, I want to show you what's the countries we are expecting or we are just exchanging right now, right? As I said, we have 36% of the countries in production. We are exchanging with all these countries. These are 10 countries that represent the 36% of our exports. All these numbers are for export. But other 34% of our certificates we are issuing to countries that are already in testing environment. So what I want to show you with this slide is that only with countries in production and testing, we are covering our 70%, the 70% of our export. So we are very close to a big number of, or a big percentage of our export covered with the Phyto. And I also want to show you that with only 9 more countries that represent 21% of our certificates, we would have covered the 90% of our exports with the Phyto only with these 26 countries. So it's not so far. We are really very close to have a very high percentage of coverage of our exports with the Phyto. And what's the number with imports? So in production, the number is not very good, but it's almost 20%, it's 18% to be exact. Only with these 10 countries that are right now in production. They are sending to us Phytos in production. But with other 7 countries that are already in testing, these 7 countries represent the 75% of our import. So if we add production and testing, we have more than 90% of our imports covered by Phyto. And with the same countries that I told you in production for exports, this is all these 26 countries, we would have covered 97% of our import. So it's not a big effort. Only production and testing cover a lot of our plant product trade, And so it was to show you how close we are to a paperless exchange with almost all our plant trade, our plant trade. Thank you, Rodrigo. All yours.
Thank you very much, Walter. And let's now, well, thank you very much for that perspective from Argentina. And now we will turn to Rodrigo Robles, who, as I mentioned, is from Santiago, Chile, representing the Ministry of Agriculture, works at the unit on agriculture and livestock services. So, Rodrigo, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Paul. The PPT is okay. Can you hear me? Thank you very much for the invitation. I am so happy and very proud to be here today because it's an opportunity to share with you our long story in electronic certification since we start to listen to electronic certification in 2006 when New Zealand invited us to share all the information about the key of the electronic certification, that is the scheme, XML scheme.
Rodrigo, Rodrigo, let me interrupt you. I'm sorry, but I think you're intending to share your PowerPoint presentation and you're sharing your Blue Jeans tab, so you'll need to shift the tab that you're sharing. There you go.
Now?
Thank you. Yes, perfect. And if you could put it on presentation mode.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, I'm so happy to be here. The possibility to share with you our long story of the electronic certification when we start to listen to electronic certification was in 2006 when New Zealand invited us to share all about the XML scheme and the standard of the scheme. That is the key of our work today. But in 2010, we start to very strong to work with our system and with other country, our partner in the cooperation. In 2013, with Netherlands, we exchange bilateral way by the use of the XML, and Netherlands gave us the system, the certificate master system that allowed the possibility to change our certificate XML. And by the same solution with Netherlands, we start to in a conversation, and we start to work with China to exchange. Specifically send to China for the use of the XML to improve the security of the paper in this moment in 2014. At the same time, Russia asked to Latin American countries if it's possible to send XML message, and we decide to work with them. And we start to send our XML for pork meat and poultry meat in 2016. That was a very good work. And after that, we signed with a Pacific Alliance on a trade for develop a single window interoperability to exchange Phytosanitary certificate. And with the 2 years of an operation with China, we decide to spread for all our product for agroforestry and meat product. And in 2018, we signed a complete decision to use paperless without paper in our operation, and similar agreement with the Federation of Russia, we decided to go to the paperless. But since 2020 was our huge connection, of course, in an environment of the pandemic situation. And we decided with Argentina was the first country with we use paperless through the hub. The 2019 we start to work with Mexico in our first experience, but with other kind of connection, and a connection in a Pacific Alliance. And after Argentina, the very good result of the exchange in the paperless, we decided to spread for all countries the possibility to use hub in a connection for exchange certificate, of course, in this environment of pandemic environment, because we are going to start to work in a different situation. Therefore, we start to work with the USA and start to exchange in paperless in June of 2020, and after that with the European Union, but the same situation. Therefore, in 2020, we start to exchange by Phytosanitary certificate and paperless with around 37 countries, and without use of the paper. Was a huge challenge for our service.
And Rodrigo, please advance your slides, Rodrigo. You're still showing your introductory slide. I think you need to advance your slides.
Do you see that now?
We only see your introductory slide at this point. You need to advance your slides, and it might be helpful to put it in presenter mode.
And now?
There you go. Thank you.
Okay. Therefore, our future projects are, of course, continue connected with other countries. New Zealand, we are start to work in the last time. Australia, United Kingdom, Korea, Japan, and in the last time, France and Netherlands, because Europe wants to send to Chile certificates from Europe and by Phyto solution by hub. Could you see my presentation? Can you see?
We see your presentation. It's not in presenter mode, but your slides are visible.
Okay. Our electronic certification system work with is a platform for government to government communication. Today we have 3 exchange mechanisms. Government to government directly. We are using this. The other is we're using the mechanism to allow Pacific Alliance and hub. Hub today we are using with Argentina, with USA, and other countries. We use a fact scheme that I told you about the war in the war with New Zealand. The standard was very important. And of course, we are today to reduce the error, the cost of the paper and strategic information to the stakeholders. Chile today have 3 systems that support electronic certification. Multipuerto, it's a system that issued all certificates, phytosanitary certificate. We use the information in XML of the disease national system. We have other system that issue all the certificate, animal certificate of meat and meat product, but the scope it's not complete. We don't have in this system all our products, and we have an import information system. Some statistic, our work in 2020 was very important for us for example, in electronic certificate, phytosanitary electronic certificate. Today we are in paperless with all main country destination countries. And China, we are in discussion and work today for work with the objective to paperless. But European Union, Netherlands, and Mexico, Colombia, Argentina, and Peru are our main destination, and today we are in paperless with them. And the total of the number of the certificate issued in a year, today we are sent electronically around 66% of this certificate. At the same time, we are working in the development of the veterinary electronic certification. Today, we send around the 53%, and our focus this year is in improve and increase the number of the animal certificate. And okay, maybe that is the point of this presentation. We work together with Argentina was very important because we have a long border together, around 4,000 kilometers of border, and we exchange a lot of products of the animal and plant products. And the difficulty with us is the logistics, because we are separated by a mountain, Andes mountain, and a very, very straight and wide road in the border. Therefore, it's so important, the information and the coordination. And we start to work and talk about the possibility to the exchange by hub solution in a different meeting when we start in face-to-face in Seoul and Buenos Aires and Uspallata. We develop a quantitative and qualitative test before we start to work in a production with exchange this information. We adjustment of the system in IT system, develop a plan of contingencies, plan procedures for start to work with the electronic data in the border, and we implemented this solution in May 2020, and we are in continuous supervision of our system together. Father.
Thanks, Rodrigo. Okay, I'm going to talk a little about the benefits we experiment with ePhyto. One of the benefits is process simplification. We have less steps to issue a phytosanitary certificate because the printing is not needed. In the import side, we only need to enter the Phyto number in order to visualize the certificate or the information, and it gives us guarantees to that it's an original, right? And no changes were made since it was issued, because no intermediates between the exporting MPPO and the importing MPPO. Another benefit is the cost reduction. For the MPPO, the cost reduction is not too much, because it's only about security paper and not need of printers. It's maybe about $1 per certificate, but for the industry, for the company, it was informed that up to $100 per consignment is saved due to courier costs, and that's if everything is okay, right? But if a replacement is needed, or the consignment could be lost, because if it is perishable good, there is a possibility of losing the goods, and this is the real benefit, right? Or the real cost saving. Now with the Phyto replacement, like Christian said in his presentation, it could take maybe hour or even minutes to replace a certificate that used to be days, right? So another benefit is a secure transmission, because there is a certainty. The certificate comes from the exporting country, MPPO, and it was not modified during the transmission. The importing country, MPPO, is the only one that with rights to read it. So the transmission is very secure. No intermediates between the MPPOs. Another benefit is the standardization of processes at the border. We did a training of inspector. Training of inspector was conducted in order to visualize and review the electronic certificate. And this allows to standardize the process and the criteria to approve or reject due documental inconsistency. Another benefit is the development of a contingency plan, because with Chile we have an agreement and a clear process to follow in case any Phyto is not in place when it is needed. In practice, it's based on the use of a system in the exporting country that allows to the importing country looking for the certificate and viewing its content. We use only this tool, we use it only maybe 6 times, I think, at the beginning, and we didn't use it in the last 6 months. Another benefit is internal and external communication improvement. We have a WhatsApp group that allow us communicating quickly to solve any problem. And something we want to remark with Rodrigo is that the confidence was improved a lot, right? When a problem is detected with the certificate, the authority trusts each other, and the solution is arranged very quickly. So with this internal and external communication improvements and the confidence that we improved between authorities, we really improved the response times. Now, a problem that used to take days, now we can solve it in minutes, maybe minutes. But this is very important for us, trust each other. Also, the contingency plan is very important for us, because we know that we have a plan B if we have a problem with the Phyto. It's not the case, because, as I already said, we use it only 6 times in almost 1 year. But we know that it's there, and we can use it if necessary. So some statistics, some numbers about the exchange between Argentina and Chile of electronic phytosanitary certificate is in this year we exchanged almost 9,000 certificates that were exported from Argentina to Chile, and from Chile to Argentina we have almost 1,500 certificates, and only 6 certificates. We have problem with only 6 certificates. So, Rodrigo, are you going to talk about next steps?
Yeah, our next step, of course, is a new country to connect our net of the exchange certification. Of course, work in a region for approval regional contingency plans, because we are all together in a cooperation group for exchange and discuss what is the new procedures that will be work the best way, no? Acknowledge solution and improve possibility to share message through our system, because when we need to replace or reject a certificate, it's important This one of this benefit is a connection directly, very quickly in between authority to resolve the problem. Therefore, our part of the solution is improve the message, but now through the system for reduce the time of the resolution of the problem. And challenge implementation in a challenge, of course, we want to word the information, the strategic information for our custom or our stakeholders, because we are on time. We manage a lot of important information that for sanitary deviation or logistic for the private sector logistic deviation, of course. We are sure that these systems improve a lot our work and allow it minimize the disruption of the trade flow. That is very important. But to finalize my presentation, I think it's very important to understand that we improve a lot the trust and the cooperation with the country. And I believe that in a short time we are going to 100% of the electronic certification solution in a Phyto and a agricultural certificate sanitary and animal sanitary certification. And thank you very much. And so just say we invite to you to connect with us an electronic certification. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rodrigo and Walter, for that very informative presentation. It's really interesting to hear about the ways in which you have been working cooperatively across the border on these issues. I'd like to invite Mr. Sharif Carvajal to join the conversation now. Sharif is the Director for Marketing for Europe and Asia and the Middle East for the Chilean Fruit Exporters Association, or ASOEX. And I think he'll be able to provide us with some insights into the operation of these systems from a private sector perspective. Sharif, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Just complementing the two very good presentations from our colleagues from Argentina and Chile. You're right. I'm currently representing the fresh fruit industry. Obviously, our industry deals with perishable products. Any type of solution that will facilitate the trade, reduce costs, is good news for everybody. And I think Rodrigo and Walter made that very clear in their presentations. Maybe in terms of best practices looking forward, we see that hopefully this type of facilitation is maintained even after post-pandemic conditions, after COVID situations. For example, currently the traces system of the EU Commission, given the COVID context, they made it no longer necessary to use the e-signature methodology. Hopefully, this will be prolonged indefinitely, so we don't add complications to the current system. On the other side, this type of initiatives that we're doing today is very important to exchange information and know-how. And at the same time, I'd like to give an example of what other government and also private trade associations are doing to facilitate this type of initiative. For example, the Southern Hemisphere Association of Fresh Fruit Exporters, which represents all the fresh fruit exporting countries from that particular region, in conjunction with the European Fresh Produce Association, FreshFel, they're working and collaborating very closely with the Global Alliance for Trade Facilitation, basically with the objective of generating new projects to co-finance the technology, infrastructure, and training that is needed to implement this type of system. So again, from a private point of view, hopefully we can have more of those types of projects that facilitate different countries coming on board to this hub. And finally, just a final comment in regards to the situation we should monitor about the future of this hub in terms of its business model, how it will be continued to finance after a certain period, and hopefully make it a sustainable system in the future, given the success it has achieved so far.
Sharif, thank you so much for your comments and for your insights from your perspective. I'd like to turn now to our next speaker, Alejandro Pernias. Alejandro is the president and CEO for Global Shares, or eDocs Online, which is a web-based platform for shipping and commercial documents. Alejandro, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. Please confirm if you can see my presentation. Just a second. Can you see my presentation, Paul?
Yes, very much so. Thank you. It's perfect.
Okay. All right. I'm right at the beginning, right?
You're at the end, actually. If it says thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sharing the wrong one. Sorry. Just one second. Can you see it right now?
I'm afraid not.
Oh, sorry that. Okay. I have my PowerPoint opened. And I think your entire screen.
You need to go to the content sharing panel in BlueJeans and then click on share screen.
Yeah, I'm doing right now. This is the same thing I did before, but for some reasons it says share permission required. To use the screen share feature, you need to turn on your screen recording.
There's the
before. Yeah, I think it's the computer that is requiring me. Second.
Paul and Alejandro, this is Emanuela. If you want, I can jump in and slide shows for.
Yes, please. Yes, it's going to be much more efficient if we do that.
Yes, thank you.
Plan B. Thank you, Manuela.
There we go. And if you could put it in presenters mode. All right, we're good to go.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Manuela. So, yes, thank you for the time slot. I will be pleased to walk you through the challenges and opportunities on our way to digitization, with a special focus on the international trade ecosystem. But before that, allow me to put our conversation in context, as there are very important elements to be considered. First and foremost, our environment. I always make a comment on the importance of our environment. The trend, of course, is very important to be considered, the current situation with the pandemic and, of course, the technology. The next, please. So regarding our environment, I think it deserves, our planet deserves at least to remain mindful of the importance of going green. And just for you to know, just about 10% of the documents are issued electronically. And these figures are taken from our platform, just for you to have an idea of the opportunities we have. For the production of the reams of paper, there is water, there are trees to be involved. And yes, the impact is huge if we thought of the quantity of documents printed on paper. In the next place, if we think of our contribution, if we gather efforts, it's very, very important, the impact we will have in our planet. So the second element is the trend. And I always remember when I got my first job, I started drafting my first document on a typewriter. When this evolved and these templates on Word and Excel showed up, I was so happy to get benefited from this technology's improvement. And after that, databases, then the clouds, and now people are speaking of sensors sending information straight to the documents. And yeah, next please. Here, as you can see, it's plenty of different buzzwords I assume you are all familiar with. Internet of the Things, data automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning, paperless trade, clouds, interfaces, and our closest friend, Mr. Blockchain. Point here is that technology has been moving on a very fast pace, and the internet keeps on bringing more and more solutions for the industry. Next, please. As for the technology, yes, blockchain, some of my colleagues refer to it as evolution, some others as a revolution. The point is, in any case, that it adds an extra layer of security. It allows a company to have more visibility and traceability of the information. And one of the most important aspects here is that you no longer need to trust on a specific brand or a specific company. You are trusting the decentralization of information, meaning that you will be avoiding that information is forged in any way and cannot be altered in any way. So, but at the same time, blockchain brings some challenges. For instance, and we are using Ethereum, the price of the gas to disseminate the information in the network skyrocketed. So it led us to investigate some other technologies, blockchain technologies. And in order to do that, there are also some important challenges, because you need to take into account that in order to interact and collaborate with some other solutions, you need to get interoperability. And in order to choose the right technology, you need to take this into account. The next one, please. So as for the pandemic situation, there is no doubt it accelerated the digitalization of the full package of shipping and commercial documents on international transactions. And I mean full package. People used to refer to, I don't know, the bill of lading, for instance. Now it's like it accelerated the entire bunch of documents. It also boosted the fintech industry by digitizing the different international payments methods. And here there were a lot of banks getting together, offering common solutions underpinned with blockchain technology. And it also accentuated and accelerated the paperless trend that we were talking before. But the most important aspect here is that it created a lot of awareness of the existing inefficiencies regarding the processes and tools, because companies used to make use of unsophisticated tools for the production of so sensitive documents. Now they are paying more attention to it by adopting breakthrough technologies and innovation with much more innovative tools like these platform, web-based platforms. The next one, please. So with all of these in context, I wanted to reach out the heart of our presentation, which means the importance of the new international trade ecosystem. And why is this? Because it is the only way that the companies avoid the trade disruption. It is the only way that the companies can collaborate and can get automated processes for the sake of having more efficiencies and have more visibility of the information. But in order for you to better understand what I'm saying, allow me to go to get a closer view of the the eDocs Online web-based platform, it will give you just an idea, and it is just only one dot of the entire ecosystem, but it will let you better understand about the importance of this ecosystem. Next one, please. So this is one representation of a standard process where, in this case, it is a Chinese buyer sending the information, click please, onto the middleman, who in turn is sending the information onto the exporting country, in this case represented by Argentina. So normally this process requires a manual entry of information. I mean, the guy in Argentina is distributing, sending the information onto the different parties that are involved in the process, meaning that they have to rekey, re-entering information for every single party, namely maritime agents, chambers for the origin certificates, MPPOs for the Phytos, and so on. So this is the standard process that normally is carried out manually. So next one. With these platforms, web-based platform, the information is entered only once, and the information is populated consistently amongst all the different participants of the transaction. As you can see here, there is like two-way communication with every single party, meaning that they will be automatically receiving the information they need to produce the documents, and at the same time they will be pushing the information after the document has been issued. For instance, and again, talking about the maritime agents, the supervision companies, fumigation companies, the MPPO for the Phytos, and the chambers, our exporters as an ecosystem, they all can get online, they all can interact and collaborate and streamline the entire process of the documents issuance. This is the heart of this interaction and the heart of how companies can streamline and interact among themselves. So next one, please. So if we get closer and we take a look at the bill of lading, you know, bill of lading is the most important document, as it is a document of title. You know, for the production of these documents, and since you had to transfer the document, the title, you need to interact between vessel owners, maritime agents, exporters, importers, and you know, these documents are now capable of being issued entirely electronically. This global share and eDocs Online has been the first company being approved by the international group of P&I clubs, underpinned with blockchain technology, meaning that now you can, instead of using couriers sending physical documents, you can now send what it's called is virtual courier. It's just the clicks. So comparing one document to a courier, the time and the efficiencies gained is really very significant. Next one, please. But the relevant point here, and that's why I refer to the bunch of documents being streamlined and the process, electronic processes, is because even though we had the electronic bill of lading capable of being issued through these platforms, we wouldn't take advantage of the entire benefit, because we would have to wait for the rest of the supporting documents to arrive at the port, at the unloading port, at destination, because if they weren't issued electronically, you should have to wait for them to arrive on courier. So the gaining would have been lost immediately. That's why it's so important to listen to these improvements regarding the e-Phytos as well, because it makes sense now to have all of them issued electronically in order to take the most of this. That's why, and this is just referring to our previous presentation on electronic Phytos, it is of the utmost importance to have this document issued electronically. And remember, I mentioned the importance of the two ways communication. I mean, We, in our case, we are interfaced with the MPPO in order to push the information, in order to avoid the manual typing or rekeying and mitigating those mistakes of rekeying the information. And at the same time, we're working right now on the ePhyto channel project, meaning that we will be receiving the result, the ePhyto, straight on our platform, and we will be sharing this with the rest of the stakeholders automatically. Next one, please. The next one. Same thing is happening with the origin certificates. The platform is now capable of issuing electronic origin certificate for the non-preferential ones, and also to streamline the process of pushing the information and retrieving the final results of those documents preferential, like the ALADI, and where there are 2 or 3 countries interacting since they agreed on a protocol for the preferential origin certificate. So now this is also being automated through these kind of platforms. Next one. So same thing is happening, and I assume you all are all familiar. You are familiar with companies like AGS, Control Union, Bureau Veritas. All these supervision companies and fumigation companies now can also take advantage of these platforms in order to produce their documents through this process very efficiently, electronically, entirely electronically. Click this. So now that you can get all these documents issued electronically, here, yes, you can make use of this new platform I was mentioning before. The banks getting together, offering common solutions to present documents to the banks with the underpinned with blockchain technologies, or directly straight through platform like eDocs Online. Next case. And so you can present documents to your counterparty while goods are on the way. And the entire process is streamlined, and the entire process is now more, you have more traceability of where you are. Next one. So with all of this, it's plenty of challenges and opportunities, just to mention a few of them. Global acceptance, how to make banks, customs, clients accepting these documents in your favor. The importance of collaboration. We have to remain mindful of the importance of collaborate among the different solutions. This one. How to harmonize and coordinate developing countries' efforts toward adoption of standardization. Standardization is key in order to dialogue and to adopt protocols in order to be more efficient on how we communicate. This one. Private and public sectors working together, sharing expertise. And this example is, for instance, the ePhyto. We've been working closely with Christian, with Rodrigo, with Walter for many years regarding the ePhyto. And this is only one example. Interoperability is the only way of growing the entire ecosystem. So we have to take this into account as well. And of course, having all the different parties interacting through the ecosystem. So conclusions. We need to adjust legislation accordingly. We need to get the countries ratifying the treaties in order to keep on moving the paperless trend. We need to encourage the different global organizations, such as the World Trade Organization, the World Customs Organization, the International Chamber of Commerce, the IGTC, and governments to work on eliminating the barriers. One important thing here is digitization is not technology, meaning that people tend to think that if they adopted blockchain technology, it is enough. It is not. That's the peak of the iceberg, but you have to think of what is beneath, because the process is very, very important. You may have the breakthrough technology without having the proper process, meaning that the outcome of this wouldn't be what you are looking for. So global interconnected collaborative solution with data automation, interfaces, system integration, and breakthrough technologies are to be considered as key to success. And lastly, the last one, encourage the different parties to be part of the new ecosystem instead of thinking of the standalone system. Thank you so much for being patient. Thank you for bearing with me. And of course, I'll be looking forward to your questions.
Alejandro, thank you very much. Thanks for that very informative presentation on the range of electronic documentation that is now being implemented in various places around the world. We'll now turn to our final speaker, Gerald Masila. Before turning to Gerald, let me just remind our participants to please post your questions in the question panel, and we'll try to get to them at the end of the session. We don't have that much time, but hopefully we'll be able to respond to a number of them. So Gerald is the Executive Director of the Eastern Africa Grains Council. And Gerald, I turn the floor over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and very much appreciated that EAGC is part of this very important discussion. I'm hoping that you can hear me clearly. I will be coming in to attest, to affirm, and to acknowledge the benefits that we are seeing in the efforts around trade digitization, and I'll be sharing our experiences from the Eastern Africa region. First of all, I'll give a quick introduction of who and then share a bit of some recommendations on what can be done to support digital trade going forward. Next slide. So Eastern Africa Grain Council is a member-based organization in the grain value chain established in 2006 by stakeholders in the grain sector. And indeed, what we are here for is to be the leading voice of the grain industry in Africa, and we're here to advocate for an enabling environment to promote structured grain trade so that all our stakeholders can get good benefits. So what we do in a nutshell is facilitating efficient, structured, inclusive, and profitable grain trade through our various interventions. Next slide. We are covering 10 countries in the Eastern Africa regional membership of EAGC from all the various other countries of the EAC, going down to DRC, Zambia, up to South Sudan, Ethiopia. And when we talk about grain, people always ask us, what do you mean by grain? So in that slide, I'm showing you a list of a whole range of various grains that we deal with, from maize, wheat, rice, beans. Teff is grown out and consumed very much in Ethiopia, sorghum, millet, and a few others. Next slide. So in facilitating efficient grain trade, we have 4 service pillars. We have a trade platform we call G-Soko. G for grain, Soko is for market in Swahili. We also provide market information through our regional agriculture trade intelligence network, where we do market monitoring and cross-border trade monitoring across the region, and we report this price data and volume data on a daily basis to our members to inform trade decisions. We also have our institute, the Grain Business Institute, where we carry out capacity building and training of our members, essentially to convert them to be structured trade practitioners. And finally, we are very much involved in the trade policy space through a forum we call the Agriculture Trade Policy Advisory Forum for Eastern and Southern Africa, where we do policy monitoring, policy dialogue, policy impact assessment, and we engage governments to ensure that the policies that are being put in place are policies that are supportive and that are enabling for the grain sector to thrive. Next slide. We, as you would expect, we are very much engaged in the global grain trade from the Eastern Africa region. We are involved in buying and selling quite a lot of commodities from the international market. We are trading in maize, in sorghum, in beans, in rice, and in wheat, predominantly in wheat. We import in the region close to 80 to 90% of the wheat we consume. In terms of our market structures, in production, most of our smallholders producers are smallholder producers, and most of the main consuming markets are the urban markets. and you would realize that both production and trade that throughout the whole channel is very, very unstructured and quite informal, and that becomes a challenge. In terms of the region, we are also engaged a lot in intra-regional trade, and we experience a lot of times trade barriers, sometimes ad hoc policy shifts. We've also faced quality issues, and even the standardization processes. When EAGC started in 2006, we had different standards across the region. So a miller in Kenya would order grade 1 maize to be delivered. Then when they get that delivery, say from Tanzania or Uganda, the grade 1 specification would be different from the grade 1 Kenya specification, and that would precipitate into trade disputes, which were an issue. And therefore, looking at all that, sometimes they became barriers to trade, and these are challenges we face to today. From the regional level, if you go to the international level, we have a nexus where in the international market, we source maize, we source rice, we source wheat, all coming from all over the world into the Eastern Africa region. And later you will see how all that international grain markets have benefited from the use of the e-phytos and in the digitization of trade. But within the Eastern Africa region, we are able to sell out to the rest of the world. And our major grain that we are able to sell particularly to Asia and other countries is pulses. You will also note that we haven't yet been able to penetrate a lot of the international market for a wide range of grains. Simple reason being that our production systems are currently quite uncompetitive. We have got very high production and transaction costs, and therefore we've not been able to penetrate the international market, and that remains an opportunity to this day. Next slide. So that slide there gives you a picture of the trade for the Eastern Africa community. This is the 6 EAC countries of Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, and the rest of the world. And you will see wheat, for example, we import well over 800,000 US dollar, 800 million US dollar worth of trade in wheat. For rice, we are doing close to almost 400,000. But for pulses, we are on the positive. So for pulses, we are able to sell out to Pakistan, to India, even to the UAE. But all the others, we are a recipient from the rest of the world. So you can see EAC is interacting very much in trade with the rest of the world, and therefore the digitization of trade has been something quite beneficial. Next slide, please. So in terms of the fact that we are involved a lot in the international trade, so that gives us a lot of reason to be involved as EAGC, as a membership organization, in looking at how the international trade policy is shaping. So gladly, we are a member of the International Grain Trade Coalition, and we have been able to participate at the IGTC platform in quite a number of international trade policy initiatives. We've been involved in the minimum residue levels in the policy teams. We've also been pursuing the least trade restrictive measures to support grain trade. We've been representing the Eastern Africa grain sector in the international policy dialogues. We've been to Geneva, to San Francisco. We've been in the IGC dialogues and very much involved in the industry, and we are monitoring and advocating for the digitization of the trade processes, particularly not only in the international trade space, but also in the cross-border regional trade. Next slide, please. Some of examples of some of the interventions as EAGC we've been able to put through to ease grain trade regionally and internationally is that, one, we try to provide market access, improving market access, particularly for smallholders, through bringing in aggregation and bulking solution. We've also been doing linkages to the regional and global markets through structured trading systems where we have seen earnings improve. And we've also been very successful in linking service providers from all over the world to our members and stakeholders in Eastern Africa to access technologies for milling, for processing, for grain handling. And this has resulted to some cost savings that are a benefit back to our members, particularly the smallholder farmers. Next slide. In the international market level, we have been successful in organizing international learning visits for grain sector stakeholders to within the African continent and outside the African continent. The photos you can see there, we carried all those SME traders from grain traders from Kenya to India in 2017, and we were able to get to organize those international B2B meetings that eventually resulted into international trade, which is indeed answering to our mandate. Next slide. In terms of the policy environment, we have been keen to improve the trade environment, looking at reducing duties. It's one of the proposals we gave to government, and it was accepted, where in 2020, the duties for yellow maize was reduced, and even for white maize to fit in, to bridge a gap. We have been also able to standardize and harmonize standards in the region. And from 2010 to date, we've been now having a harmonized grain standard in the Eastern Africa region, where through our efforts, grade 1 specifications in Uganda are the same as in Kenya and Tanzania and Rwanda, Burundi, and that has facilitated trade because we are using one harmonized standard in the region. We've also been able to unlock pulses exports, both to India and even to Pakistan through interventions when we have had issues of some limitations to trade. And we also, as an organization and as our Apex policy advocacy platform, we've been hosting the biennial Africa Grain Trade Summit, where we are able to conference and network and bring out key issues that need to be addressed to ensure that the grain trade is happening in a very efficient manner and with minimum interruptions and blockages. Next slide. So to get our members and stakeholders to play up in the industry well, we have been involved in capacity building in the industry. Like I mentioned earlier, through our institute, the Grain Business Institute, we carry out competency-based training courses because that institute is also registered and accredited with the Ministry of Industrial Training here in Kenya. And so we are offering these training courses across our various stakeholders. And one of the trainings we've done is even looking at how to do international trade, to understand the various requirements to do international trade, and even to finance international trade, where one of the topics we deal with is the area of procedures, documentation, and looking at case studies of various digitization of documents to support trade. Next slide. So specifically now to digitization, we are glad that Kenya has been one of the countries that were in the forefront of adopting the e-Phytos, Kenya, of course, with Uganda. But in this region, it's only Kenya and Uganda that are currently utilizing the e-Phyto system. We've recently gotten Zambia registered, and Rwanda are testing the system. And in the next slide, I'll be sharing some of the experiences that our members have been able to go through as they utilize this digitization of the trade processes. Next slide. So when we engage with our members, because we support them, we facilitate them on a daily basis, and we engage to understand how has the e-Phyto certificates in East Africa been utilized, and what benefit, what experiences are we seeing. And all what we get is to affirm and confirm what has just been shared with my previous speakers. One, we've been able to see a big reduction of paperwork because everything is shareable with multiple people and within a very short period. We've seen clear cost reductions because looking at what you would have to pay for courier services was quite a lot. Now, when you go digital, then those are the costs that you're able to take out. Time saving, because time is money, as they say. We've seen, and this our members have been able to confirm to us at the Secretariat, that the e-Phytos, because it's electronic, it's digital. You don't have the time wasted on handling manual papers, and also it's very, very secure because it's an online. There's no chance to tamper, to change documents, to fake documents, and It's been something that has been a benefit through and through and through, and we really say that this has worked, particularly for those of our members who are involved in importing mainly wheat, and also we've been able to have maize imports and others into the region utilizing the e-phytos. Next slide. So in terms of also further experiences, we've seen that looking at beyond the e-phytos, there's also been some more digitization happening in Kenya, particularly where Kenya has got the hen trade single window system, which looks to digitize the various documentation when you're doing trade. And again, with our members using this hen trade digital system, we've seen again the same benefits confirmed in the time savings, in the cost savings, and more importantly, the transparency and accountability that this whole digitization brings in, and is something that the uptake is quite increasing and something that we see going on and growing into the future because it does deliver tangible benefits. Next slide. So having shared all that, having seen all that, what do we see as going forward? Number one is to say that while digitization has worked and has benefited international trade, we've hardly utilized it for cross-border trade. And in fact, as I speak now, we have an issue here in Eastern Africa where just about a week or two ago, the Kenya government banned importation of maize from Uganda and Tanzania into Kenya, citing high aflatoxin levels and indicating that a lot of the trade between these countries has been happening informally and that sampling and testing and quality control confirmation has not been happening. And we have therefore put forward that one of the solutions to that should be adoption and digitization of these digital solutions, for example, the e-phytos, and therefore as EAGC, we are now lobbying the governments to see to it that we can adopt e-phytos to support regional cross-border trade with the neighboring countries. We also have realized that the level of awareness about these technologies, these new solutions is also very, very low among the stakeholders, including even government agencies. And therefore, we are recommending that some very serious sensitization and capacity building be undertaken to the stakeholders so that we increase awareness and we improve the uptake. And of course, capacity building of all industry players involved is very, very important so that we're able to get a lot more adoption for these digital solutions because they are the ones that will take us to the next step. And for us, they are central to us achieving our mandate of facilitating efficient, structured, inclusive, and profitable grain trade. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any question or comment that may follow after this. Thank you very much for listening to me. Bye.
Gerald, thank you very, very much for that presentation and for the insights on developments that are taking place in East Africa. That was very, very informative. I'm sorry to say that we've really run out of time, so I don't think we're going to have the opportunity to offer many questions and answers to our panelists. But I really would like to give each of our presenters an opportunity within perhaps 30 seconds or so, and I'm sorry for the very short time available. But if we could turn to each of our panelists and ask them to give their thoughts on what you would hope that our participants take away from the presentations that we've heard today. What perhaps are the nuggets, the pearls of wisdom that really should be garnered from the session that we've hosted today. So with that, let me turn first to Christian, and then we'll go through with the other panelists. And as I say, in a very brief fashion. Thank you. Christian, are you still with us? Well, I don't know if Christian is having some technical difficulties. So if he's not able to join us, maybe I can turn to Walter. Okay. Rodrigo, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Any last thoughts or comments that you'd like to share with the participants from our session today?
Our last comment, maybe like a vision of the developed country, like depend of the export fruit or commodities. We think that is possible today, connected in this net of the Phyto solution. We have an example with Sri Lanka. In the last 2 months ago, they began to use gene solution, and in a very short time, maybe in 2 weeks, we asked us if it's possible to receive Phyto from Sri Lanka, and we studied the situation and decided yes, and we start to today all the product we receive from Sri Lanka use electronic certification, and we don't have any problems, and it's possible. The message is today all country can use the solution. All country if have the decision and you understand that the real benefit of the use this kind of message, one language in XML, is possible to improve all the procedures and, of course, improve the sanitary, like is my word, the sanitary situation of each country, or the risk of any problem with the illness. I think, and with the use of this important information, we can maybe protect the population of the bad products or product risk with the introduced illness in the world. Therefore, I think we are in the beginning in the electronic certification, but we have a lot of things to do and possibility to improve a lot of things. Our decision, logistic reduce of the cost of the exporter. Therefore, my invitation is try to use the solution, and after that, decide if you go to the paperless. And of course, I am sure that you will take all the benefit of this. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rodrigo. Appreciate your comments. Sharif, do you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience? Sharif, I think we are having some technical difficulties. I'm afraid we can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead. Yes.
Oh. No, simply thank you very much for the invitation. As was mentioned in previous presentations, at the end of the day, it's important to reinforce these efforts, making sure that we have the finance to continue these types of projects and trying to onboard different countries to different trade facilitation projects that are available, and that we should make them probably more aware or promote them amongst different private entities. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharif. Thanks for your thoughts. That was excellent. Alejandro, any closing thoughts, any closing comments before we end the session?
Sure. Yes. My message is think of the importance of the ecosystem in order to get the most of streamlining processes. But in order to do that, you need to think of the interoperability among solutions. That's key in order to streamline and gaining efficiencies at the end. So that's the global overview that I would recommend to everybody. And another aspect important for developing countries is that they can, through this technology, can get access to the breakthrough technology. And by accessing this innovation, they can streamline processes and gaining a lot of efficiencies, meaning that they will get lower costs, and lower cost means cheaper prices of the food. So that's my message. And thank you very much for the time slot, as I said at the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandro. Gerald, any closing thoughts on your part?
Thank you. Thank you very much. For me, I'd like to say that what we learned from this digitization success, particularly the eFITO, is that it's a great example of public-private partnership where you have a public sector responsibility of generating documents that are very important for enabling transactions to take place. And so it shows that collaboration, that partnership between public sector, private sector, governments, and the business world can work, and can work well, where we can have those shared documents, shared responsibilities. And all I would like to say is that let's scale this one up. Let's adopt it in as many countries as possible, but not only at the international level, let's also use it at the local, regional level, cross-border trade. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gerald, and I think we all support your view that this is something that as many as possible should be adopting going forward. Let me just turn and see if, Christian, you've been able to fix your microphone. Are you able to offer any closing comments? It sounds perhaps that it's not going to be possible. All right, well, I'm sorry about that. Walter, are you able to join us for any closing thoughts or comments?
Yes. As I said before, well, I encourage all the MPPOs that can join the hub to do it. The benefits are a lot. It's not so complicated as it seems. As we already said with Rodrigo, it's all about trust. Of course, the tool provides security, and it works. It's working very good. So just do it. Thank you.
Very good, Walter. Thank you very much. Well, we've come to the end of the session. We've run over a few minutes, and my apologies for that. But I think we've had a very rich discussion, and I think there's been a lot of food for thought, if you will, for those countries and those regions of the world which are still looking forward to the implementation of these digital solutions, if you will, to cross-border trade. I want to thank, on behalf of all of us, our presenters, Christian Dellis, Rodrigo Robles, Walter Alessandrini, Sharif Carabayal, Alejandro Pernias, and Gerald Masila. We very much appreciate your time and your insights, and we look forward to working with you in the future as more of these digital opportunities unfold around the world. With that, I'd like to shift gears now to our second panel. As I indicated at the outset, we were running 2 sessions back to back, and we'll now turn to session number 25. This is a session that I think flows logically from our first one. This one we titled Building on Paperless Trade, Development and the Enabling Environment for E-Commerce. In the first session, as we've heard from the panelists, many of the interventions focused on the enabling environment for trade and the ways that increased utilization of digitalization can support the flow of goods. Now in our second panel, what we'd like to do is to turn to the ways in which digital technologies and digital platforms are promoting particular opportunities in the agricultural sector and in small-scale entrepreneurial activities. For those of you who may just have been joining us for this second panel, let me remind you that the bios for our speakers are available online, and I'll post that link again in the chat box so that we don't take up more time with formalities. And what I'd like to do now is to turn to our first speaker on our second panel. We have joining us Suzanne Wittenbogengard from Cargill, who will be speaking about some of the work that Cargill is doing in the cocoa sector and in the chocolate area. So with that very briefest of introductions, Suzanne, let me turn the floor to you.
Hi, everyone. I hope you hear me. I'm just going to share my presentation. One sec. Let me see. So I'm presenting today together with my colleague Jean-Marie Delon. I hope everyone can see my screen. So today we'll touch upon the digitization in the Cargill cocoa chocolate supply chain. So looking at some practical examples of how we are using technology in our cocoa supply chain to achieve our sustainability goals. We'll touch briefly upon the role of digital technology in developing sustainable supply chains and covering a case study in Côte d'Ivoire. Where we're using digital tools for farmer organizations, and then looking at how we're using these lessons in Ivory Coast to expand to different regions. So I myself am Suzanne Attenbogard. I'm the Sustainable Value Chain Manager overseeing the Supply Chain Transparency Program in cocoa and chocolate. And we'll present today together with my colleague Jean-Marie Delon. So over to you, Jean-Marie.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. So my name is Jean-Marie Delon. I'm Sustainability Program Manager for Cargill. I am based in Abidjan and I oversee our programs in Ivory Coast, Ghana and Cameroon. So as introduced by Suzanne, we'll be taking you through a small presentation to show you about the role of digital technology in developing supply chains with the particular case of Ivory Coast. And then later on, Suzanne will take over to present our next steps and how we will be expanding to other regions. So data. Yeah. Okay, thanks. So Cargill is one of the largest family-owned companies in the world, and we are working alongside farmers, producers, and manufacturers, retailers, governments, and now NGOs to fulfill our purpose to nourish the world in a safe and responsible way. Together with those stakeholders that I mentioned, we try to create efficiencies, we try to develop innovations, and we want to help communities to thrive. Suzanne, next slide, please. So this is the footprint of Cargill across the world. We are present in 52 locations, either through sourcing activities, mainly in West Africa, and all across the world, we have cocoa and chocolate processing plants and application centers. We think globally, but we try to make sure that we act locally to make sure that we come up with the right solutions adapted to the needs of the farmers and also at the same time responding to the needs of the customers. So the issues that we are trying to solve are directly in line with the cocoa origins where we are sourcing our cocoa. And those issues are intrinsically linked to the social, economic, and environmental issues present in those origins. And as I was explaining, we think globally, but we act locally, and all our solutions aim at responding to the issues that we face in those countries. Suzanne, can we have the next slide? So we have economic challenges facing, the cocoa sector is facing economic challenges, environmental challenges, and social economic challenges. I don't see the slide. Not yet. This okay. Sorry. Many farmers in African region, Ivory Coast, Ghana, and Cameroon are missing basic access to basic infrastructures. They are missing access to financial services. And as I will try to explain you in this presentation, we try to connect them through financial services, through the development of strong farmer organizations that can be viable actors of business and at the same time responsible vectors of development. Next slide, please, Suzanne. So in a nutshell, these are the goals that Cargill Cocoa and Chocolate is pursuing. We have 5 sustainability goals. The first one is related to farmer livelihoods, while through which we are developing the best shared practices to increase the livelihoods of the farmers. And as I said, make sure that cocoa is a business opportunity. Make sure that the farmers of tomorrow are really working in a sustainable way. We also have a strong ambition related to community well-being, and we will be enhancing safety and well-being of children and families in cocoa farming communities. Protecting the planet is one of our very important goals. As you know, agriculture has a direct impact on environment, and through our actions, we try to make sure that we are able to mitigate the impacts of agriculture and make sure that agriculture and cocoa farming contributes to a better world for tomorrow. Consumer confidence is the 4th goal. Consumers want to know where the food that they are consuming comes from, and they want to make sure that the chocolate that they are consuming doesn't have a bitter taste. For this reason, we have been developing lots of technologies that I will be happy to introduce you to connect the dots and bring evidence that the cocoa that we are buying is sourced from locations where we are developing sustainability programs. Obviously, all those changes, we will not be able to achieve them on our own. So this is the reason why we have a strong 5th pillar that is called transformation together, and which actually leads me today to make this presentation to you. So we want to transform the cocoa sector together. We want to onboard relevant partners to support us in our ambition to make an impact on the lives of those millions of cocoa farmers across the world. Suzanne? So we have a theory of change. Over time, we want to achieve a thriving cocoa sector. As I was explaining, we have a great ambition to improve community livelihoods. We want to have resilient farmers for which agriculture is a business opportunity. And of course, we want to mitigate our impacts on the environment. So this is an ambition that we are deploying through our third ambition related to sustainable landscapes. In the countries where we are operating, we are working through farmer organizations, and as I will be explaining in this presentation, we have lots of ambition for those farmer organizations because we consider that they have a role to play in improving the living conditions of the farmers, in improving their level of professionalism, and as I said, we want them to be viable business entities that can be vectors of rural development. Farmer organizations are intrinsically engaged in our strategy, and they are the ground for all the programs that we are developing and that I will be showing today. Suzanne, can we move to the next slide? Okay. So we have been. Data is very central for monitoring and managing our supply chains. It enables us to provide evidence and reliability to our sustainability claims. We have a technology-driven and evidence-based approach, fostering activities related to transparency and traceability of the cocoa sector. And increased digitalization is the next step of this wonderful journey that we are developing. Since a couple of years, we've been developing the CocoWise. The CocoWise is a data platform. CocoWise is a data platform providing customers with fast and easy access to the sustainability data that Cargill is developing. CocoWise pulls information from a centralized data platform that is called CocoWise 360, which is fed from a suite of Cargill digital tools that are designed to increase transparency and traceability while enhancing cocoa farming practices and community well-being. Our digital farm services are delivered through apps that enable the farmers to make informed business decisions based on weather, agronomic, and market access information. And lately, in the COVID situation, we were also able to use this technology to provide farmers with public health messages to help keep farmers safe from COVID-19. So CocoWise enable us to do better, to provide farmers and farmer organization with data analysis. And as I was explaining, it is fed by systems that we are developing in Origins, for instance, enabling us to connect the dots related to farm mapping. We also develop applications to support inclusion of farmers and farmer organization into financial inclusion, and we have a cooperative management system that enable us to ensure the bean track, so that we are able to show to our customers where the cocoa that we are sourcing is coming from, make sure that our customers are provided with the proof that this cocoa is produced in a safe and responsible way. Suzanne, next slide, please. So I will pause here and just give you a better overview of what we do through a small 2-minute movie showing our digital tools, and then I come back for some explanations, and after which Suzanne will be taking over.
Je m'appelle Rodrigo Robles. Je suis le PCA de la coopérative Dialogue de Djekanou. La coopérative Dialogue de Djekanou a commencé avec 150 membres et on faisait 500 tonnes de cacao. Mais au jour d'aujourd'hui, on est passé à 4000 membres. Avec les 4000 membres, on arrive à faire 9000 tonnes de cacao. Et dans 9000 tonnes de cacao, il y a plus de 8000 tonnes de cacao certifié qu'on fait. Un planteur certifié, c'est un planteur qui respecte le norme de la certification. Et dans le norme de la certification, la plantation ne doit pas être dans une forêt classée. Et en deuxième lieu, les enfants aussi ne doivent pas travailler dans les plantations d'un planteur qui a sa plantation qui est dans la certification. En troisième lieu, nous aussi, grâce à la certification, on a des coachs qui viennent nous apprendre les bonnes pratiques agricoles dans nos plantations. D'abord, le coach fait le tour de la plantation avec le planteur. Parce que quand le planteur accepte ce que le coach lui dit, si son cacao qui faisait au moins 500 kg cette année peut aller autour de 650 kg à 700 kg dans l'année. Le mapping, ce sont des jeunes gens qui arrivent dans la plantation avec le planteur lui-même. Et le planteur montre les limites de sa plantation. Et il a une tablette en main. Et vraiment pour faire les points GPS et faire le tour de la superficie de la plantation. Et quand il a fini de faire la superficie, il dit au planteur, ah, voilà le nombre d'hectares de ta plantation. Grâce au mapping aujourd'hui, la coopérative est sûre que son planteur ne se trouve pas dans une forêt classée.